Hey everybody, welcome to March. I have a brand new recipe that I have uploaded into the classroom. This recipe is going to be really easy. It's really beginner friendly and it is low fat and high moisture content. So this is really great for dogs that have fat intolerance or pancreatitis, or need to lose weight or are overweight or tend to be overweight, or even some dogs that have a really huge appetite and don't want to have the high calorie or high fat content. So if you don't have the fat to add the calories, you have to have something else. So we do have to have a source of grain in this formulation, and a source of carbohydrates. So energy has to come from somewhere. If it's not going to be the fat, then it's got to be made up by protein and made up by carbohydrates. So this one I've chosen is higher protein, but it's lower fat sources. So I've got my really, really lean pork, ground pork, make it really life easier for you. I've got some eggs. I've got egg whites that you can buy in a carton. It doesn't matter if it's free run, free range, whatever sets your fancy. I'm fine with that. And of course, we've got our beef liver, which is going to be the source of like a multivitamin. So these are your main proteins that you're going to need. Any amounts will be included in the recipe that is uploaded. I'm just talking generalities right now. So these are your ingredients that you're going to need for the protein sources. Next up, we've got our vegetable sources, and I've chosen a butternut squash. It makes the texture really great. It holds up well in the crock pot. And I've got my dandelion greens, and you'd be surprised how easily these are to find. This cost me about $3 from the grocery store, and they are probably one of the most mineral and vitamin dense green veg you can get. So normally I use spinach, but spinach doesn't do so well in a crock pot, but dandelion greens hold up. They're quite a meaty type of green, leafy green. And I've also got my parsley, and I've got some frozen green beans. These are my own green beans that I've grown and I've frozen them, but you can just go and buy anything from the grocery store in the freezer section. That's totally fine too. There's a lot of research that shows that actually flash frozen vegetables have a higher vitamin content than their fresh counterparts. So it's a great option. And of course, for my vitamin D source, I've got this portobello mushroom that I've been sitting in the sun for probably about 2 hours yesterday in the bright, sunny winter sunshine. So even when it's really cold out, the ability of these gills to convert the sunshine into vitamin D2 is very effective. And I choose to use the food source of vitamin D as opposed to a vitamin D drops. They can be toxic and hard in large amounts. So I choose anytime possible to get these portobello mushrooms in the grocery store, and they're really great. You don't need very much of it. Second of all, I've got my grain source, and a lot of people are like, no grains, no grains. This holds up very well in the crock pot, in particular brown rice. So I always choose California premium brown rice, and you always need to make sure that you rinse it really, really well as well. Brown rice is lower in glycemic levels. It keeps your dog fuller longer. It holds up well in the crock pot. So this is also about texture. So not all recipes are really great in the crock pot, but this one is. And last but not least, these all are to be added after the crock pot's finished. We've got our organic chia seeds, and we'll have our zinc that we can add to meet the zinc components. Kelp will be added for the iodine component. And of course, we must have a eggshell powder or a bone meal. I've chosen to use eggshell powder in this because I use so many eggs in my recipes, and I've got tons and tons of eggshells that I can ground into a powder. And very, very last but not least, you don't add it to the batch, but you'll add it after it's finished into each meal upon serving, and it's your omega-3, and it has to have the vitamin E in it. If it doesn't have the vitamin E in it, you're going to have to add an additional source of it. Okay, so these are my ingredients. Next up, we'll chat about the actual tools you're going to need to make this recipe. Okay, so these are the kitchen essential items that you're going to need in order to make a successful and efficient recipe for you. First and foremost, we need a digital scale. I cannot tell you how important it is to have a decent functioning digital scale that measures in grams. I don't use pounds and I don't use ounces. I use grams for everything because the amounts can get so small. Once you get into the chia seeds and you're like 3 grams or 5 grams, you need to have a very accurate digital scale that goes down to such a small amount of weight. Next up, I've got my food processor, and I use the grading function on this one. You could see that's all the little grading as opposed to the manual one. This is easier for the butternut squash and for the portobello mushrooms, just because it gets them graded really, really, really fine. and it distributes well in the mixture. If you have a larger dog that appreciates larger chunks of food, then feel free to just rough chunk it or dice it. That's totally fine too. But this really works well to get it really, really fine. It's easier for digestion as well and distributes within the crock pot recipe a little better as well. And again, you can use the manual grater if you want. When we do the liver is going to go into the crock pot whole. So the entire amount that you're going to need, which will be on the formulation or the recipe pages, you will put that into the crock pot whole. And when you're finished cooking everything, you're going to pull that piece of liver out and you can throw it into the miniature food processor. And this grates it. It doesn't really grate it, it actually pulverizes it and minces it into a very fine sort of texture, which makes it easier to distribute. If you feel like it, you can certainly use a knife and chop it up into small chunks as well. But I find that when you're working with small dogs and small batches, this helps distribute it better. And then it's the texture is easier because sometimes liver gets gummy and sort of sticky. So this makes it easier as well. The crock pot this is a small one. It's a smallish one. If you're doing a larger batch, you're going to have to use a larger crock pot. So the recipe that I'm doing will be for about 25-pound dog for about 2 days, but you will just have to multiply it by however many days you want. All of the instructions on how much to feed and how big your batch should be will be in the calendar as well, or in the classroom as well. So crockpot absolutely necessary. You can do this on a regular pot on top of the stove, but you just have to manage it a bit more. But this one's kind of nice. You throw everything in here and you're going to go bugger off for like an hour or two and you're going to come back and stir it and check on it. So this makes life easier for you. I'm just trying to save you guys some time. So next up, let's cook. Okay, so here everything is added to the crock pot here. And if you see this is my liver. This is my piece of liver that I'm adding in whole. I'm not going to chop that. It's really difficult to chop raw liver. So we're going to put it in whole and we're going to pull it out and chop it later. So it's all mixed in here. It looks a little bit of like a hot mess right now, but you got to remember that most of this is, you've got a cup of egg whites in here. So that egg white will cook down. So it's really important that you keep an eye on this, that it doesn't get too dried up or burnt, and keep adding water as needed. And you don't want to add too much water though, because this isn't soup. We're not making soup for dogs or stew for dogs. This is going to turn into like a mash, like a cooked mash. So we're going to give this about 1 to 2 hours. Check it occasionally, check it maybe every 30 minutes, cook it on high, and then we'll double check and make sure that there's enough water in it that it doesn't stick to the sides and burn. And we'll see you in a few hours. Okay, folks, so here we have our final batch here. This was on the crock pot on high for about an hour and a half. As you can see, it's pretty moist still, but that's okay because it'll continue to absorb the water. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my liver. So I took this liver out and I put it in a little mini food processor, and it grates it really, really fine, or minces it really, really well. And next I have to add my chia seeds. So my chia seeds will absorb some of the moisture as well and puff up, which is a good thing. The next I have my zinc. I'm unable to find oysters in the cans in water anymore. So now I have to add my zinc tablets to it. So you just crack it open and spread it in and mix it around. And our iodine, which is the kelp powder, 1 scoop, tiny, tiny, tiny little scoop here. That's all we add. And our iodine, and of course our eggshell powder that I make myself, and I'll do some future videos on how to make it yourself as well. So here's our eggshell powder. We're mixing it around. I am not adding my omega-3s. I'm going to add them into each batch or each serving as I go. And now we are just going to mix and mix and mix. See how it's got a very high moisture content? This is very voluminous. There's a lot of volume and weight to this. So this is really great at keeping dogs full. It's also really low in fat, so it's going to be really great for dogs that have fat digestive problems. So here we go. This is what it looks like. It's kind of mushy. I'm going to divide this based on my dog's weight, and all the instructions again are in the calculation sheet. And I'm going to use about this is going to make, for my dogs, it's going to make about 6 days worth, and I'm going to store it into individual containers in the fridge up to 3 days, and the rest I will freeze. At each meal, I will add the omega-3s and the vitamin E's afterwards to each meal once a day, because I don't want to put the fats in here because they can oxidize, and um, I don't have the ability to keep them from not oxidizing in the freezer. So that's what I'm going to do afterwards. So thank you all, and good luck to you. If you have any questions, please drop me a DM and certainly share with the group chat. Thanks, guys.